open and close promptly per the law. Can y'all see me? Am I here? Islam. Islam, Morris. Islam. This meeting period is now being called to order.
Please place your cell phones on vibrate.
It's longer.
Meeting period.
It's longer. You coming in on both devices?
Thank you for that.
Always
set up my backup device. Because, you know, technology is technical. Can y'all hear me the same?
Islam.
All right, we recorded. All right, Islam. This unity that we, the sons and daughters of the ancient Moabite blood, have established upon these shores of northwest of Mexico in this alien civilization shall be preserved at all costs with the bonds of Ali's holy and divine laws. And if we violate these universal laws or principles by preferring the stranger before thy own sacred blood, and may the flaming swords of our forefathers turn upon us the wrath of Allah and strike us down 7 times. We pledge our allegiance to Prophet Noble Drew Ali under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Time never was. Islam. Now, if you are able, actually, my sister Alma Mora El, would you mind leading us in the prayer?
I will do my best.
Praise Allah.
Let me praise him. All those who are willing and able, stand facing the east. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Am I doing this right?
You got it.
Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector. Allah is my protector, my father and my guide, by day and by night, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Ameen. Islam. Are one of the brothers going to read the articles before we're seated, or?
Yeah, you all may be seated. We're going to, it's customary, we're going to open up. We're reciting the divine constitution and bylaws. Salvation, Allah, unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the divine constitution and bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God, Allah. And for that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and partial of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and a partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slave holders in 1779 and lasting until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the nameless faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God, Allah. Noble Drew Ali, founder, Moorish American Prayer. Allah, the father of the universe, the father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my God, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Islam, Islam, Islam. And home office is in Mecca. Islam. First we rise, we give complete and perfect praise to Allah, the author, creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. We give honor to his illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for restoring our nationality and our birthrights here in northwest of Mexico. We give honor to the harbinger, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, for paving the way and tell the nations to prepare to meet the coming prophet who will bring the true and divine creed of Islam. We give honor to all past and present and future leaders of the Moorish Science Temple of America. We give honor to all the groups, all the various grand councils and all the governing heads and everybody that's doing their part. One prophet, one temple. We give honor to each and every one of you that can hear the sound of my voice. Honors to all the all the true and divine prophets, namely Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. Honors to the flags that make us Moorish Americans. Honors to the charter bearing the 10 wonders of the world, which we are all the direct descendants of. Honors to your mama and your daddy and your cousins and all of them. Honor to all the foes that you've conquered. Honor to you and you and your children and all things Moorish. Islam, 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 Moors. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another installation of our National Koran Study Class. Again, this is a national call. It's public. You can call any and everybody. All are welcome. And it's important for us to continue to study our Koran and our divine constitution and bylaws as our prophet instructed us to do. So I'm going to activate the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the logo Circle 7, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guiding of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen state of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. Know thyself and Allah, the genealogy of Jesus, life and works of Jesus in India, Europe, and Africa, in the land of Egypt. Noble Drew Ali, the prophet and founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, to redeem the people from their sinful ways. Sultan Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, the descendant of Hagar, now the head of the holy city of Mecca. Islam, Islam. So, for those who might be attending your first time, just so you know what to expect. So every Wednesday we come together for the purpose of studying our Koran together. And we invite different leaders from around the nation to come on and lead us, to give us a good example on how to study and how to apply these lessons from those who've been in it for a while, got some wisdom. And we've been going backwards through the Holy Koran. So every creation, we go through a different chapter. We started at chapter 48, and now we're on chapter 40. And as we know, masterminds can trace themselves back. So that's kind of what we got going on here. So again, this is a safe space. This is an interactive call. The only thing that we ask is that if you do have a question, you just raise the, there's a feature at the bottom. Just hit the hand signal feature, you extending your 5, and that will notify us that you would like to say something and would like to speak. And then when the speaker yields to you, then please respect the speaker, give them an opportunity, and ask your questions or share your comments. Now, I'm not going to tarry long because today I too get to be received as a pupil, and praise Allah, it's a blessing. I just am excited. I hope you have some pen and some paper ready. The brother, my brother man, my friend, the elder, the good Mo, the good role model, all those good attributes accurately describe this brother. Some of you have already seen him active online. I don't know how you can't miss Temple 19. Great group of Moors doing wonderful, wonderful works. I've been blessed and honored to be able to first listen and learn from this brother from a distance. Because always, you see Moors online demonstrating, he's like, man, that's a nice, clean, smooth demonstration. Then I had the blessing and the honor to actually come and meet him in the flesh. And guess what? It's a nice, clean, smooth demonstration. Mo is the message that he brings and does a wonderful, wonderful job. So with that being said, I ask us to please be respectful, lend our ear, listen without our passion, to be just, and give the floor to our beloved brother, man, and friend, our Sheik, our Grand Sheik from Temple 19, Grand Governor from Georgia, our beloved brother, Heru Ranesi-El. Islam, Sheik, you have the floor, brother.
Islam, Brother Chairman, Islam to all the Moors. Having already risen my thoughts in prayer, I must continue by giving all praise due to the great God of the universe, affectionately known to the Moorish Americans as Allah. Allah is the author, the creator, the governor of the worlds, the almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. All praises are due to Allah. Extend the highest of honors to his illustrious prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America and the savior of humanity. Extending those honors to his forerunner, the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the African Communities League. It was our brother Marcus Garvey that said, up, up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. Extending honors to the Moorish flag as well as the American flag, which combined signifies us as Moorish Americans. Extending honors to all things the chairman gave honors to at this onset of the meeting. Extending honors to each and every one of you. Islam, Moors. So all praise is due to Allah and the highest of honors to his illustrious prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali Moors. Before I, get into any of my demonstration, I would just like to say, firstly, it was an honor. It's extremely high honor to be invited to demonstrate before you all. It's always an honor to be amongst the Moorish Americans. I most sincerely love this movement. I most sincerely love my people, our people, and I desire their freedom as well as my own, back to our own free national standards and principles. I'd like to wish you all a happy Moorish American Holy Week. I hope you all had a phenomenal January 8th celebration here at Temple number 19. We've had a pretty action-packed weekend, January 5th on the holy day. Ourselves, along with Temple 33, whose Grand Sheik is our brother Ankanat and Salam Bey. We linked together, along with we had dignitaries present from the Nation of Islam, the UNIA. It was a very, very beautiful demonstration. The ether was very, very high. That Sunday, we of Temple 19 visited Temple 33, in a display of unity. Ether was also high. A lot of powerful lessons came across the holy altar. And on January 8th, again, Temples 19 and 33 met, for a feast in honor of Chapter 19. When all the masters of the East gathered, to have a feast to discuss the needs, of at that time, India and the world, but we discussed the needs of America and the world. So praise be to Allah for that. So it's been very, very high, and all the way leading up to, as we're getting up to January 15th, our Moorish New Year, it's a very, very high time. Or so, I would just like to stress for everybody to, to dwell in love more, because love is the only savior of the world. With that being said, I'd like to, as is custom, demonstrate the Holy Quran, as was demonstrated earlier. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the God in which Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from a sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. I would like to declare my intentions with page 3. Dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. They're for good, peace, and happiness for all those that love Jesus. And we Moorish Americans know that Jesus means justice. If there's any good that you hear from me this evening, it does not come from me. It comes from the great God Allah and Allah alone. If there's any mistakes or slips of the tongue or any confusion, place that on I, Brother Heru Ranesi-El. Please do not put that on our beloved Prophet Noble Drew Ali, nor his teachings, and most certainly do not put that on Allah, for Allah alone is perfect. Islam Moors. With that being said, I'd like to demonstrate the chapter from for this evening. How we would like to do this, I've been given orders from the or instructions from the chairman to actually demonstrate the whole chapter. Then I could go back and demonstrate any specific verses or whatever. But I'll begin with reading the entire chapter. Chapter for this evening is chapter 40, which is found on page 49 in the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Chapter 40, the holy instructions from the prophet, the instability of man. Verse 1, inconstancy is powerful in the heart of man. Intemperate swayeth whither it will. Despair engrosseth much of it, and fear proclaimeth, behold, I sit unrivaled therein, but vanity is beyond them all. Weep not therefore at the calamities of the human state, rather laugh at its follies. In the hands of the man addicted to vanity, life then is but the shadow of a dream. The hero, the most renowned of human character, what is he but the bubble of this weakness? The public is unstable and ungrateful. Why should the man of wisdom endanger himself for fools? The man who neglecteth his present concerns to revolve how he will behave when greater, feedeth himself with wind, while his bread is eaten by another. Act as becometh thee in thy present station, and in more exalted ones thy face shall not be ashamed. What blindeth the eye, or what hideth the heart of a man from himself like vanity? Lo, when thou seest not thyself, then others discover thee most plainly. As the tulip that is gaudy without smell, conspicuous without use, so is the man who sitteth himself up so high and hath not merit. The heart of the vain is troubled while it seemeth content. His cares are greater than his pleasures. His solicitude cannot rest with his bones. The grave is not deep enough to hide it. He extendeth his thoughts beyond his being. He bespeaketh praise to be paid when he is gone, but whosoever promiseth it deceiveth him. As the man who engageth his wife to remain in widowhood, that she disturb not his soul, so is he who expected that his praise shall reach his ears beneath the earth, or cherish his heart in its shroud. Do well whilst thou livest, but regard not what is said of it. Content thyself with deserving praise, and thy posterity shall rejoice in hearing it. As the butterfly who seeth not his own colors, as the jasmine which feeleth not the scent it casteth around it, so is the man who appeareth gay, and biddeth others to take note of it. To what purpose, saith he, is my vesture of gold? To what end are my tables filled with dainties, if no eye gaze upon them? If the world knows it not, give thy raiment to the naked, and thy food unto the hungry, so shalt thou be praised, and feel that thou deserveth it. Why bestowest thou in every man the flattery of unmeaning words? Thou knowest when returned thee, thou regardest it not. He knoweth he lieth unto thee, yet he knoweth thou wilt thank him for it. Speak in sincerity, and thou wilt hear with instruction. The vain delighteth to speak of himself, but he seeth not that others like not to hear him. If he hath done anything worth praise, if he possesseth that which is worthy of admiration, his joy is to proclaim it. His pride is to hear it reported. The desire of such a man defeateth itself. Men say not, behold, he hath done it, or see, he hath possesseth it, but mark how proud he is of it. The heart of man cannot attend at once to too many things. He who fixes his soul on show loseth reality. He pursueth bubbles which break in their flight, while he treads to earth what would him honor. Surely Allah speaks the truth to his holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. More before I get into unpacking this, because there's a lot here. I want to extend honors to today's National Koran class. And the reason why I want to do this is because, praise be to Allah, I've been in Moorish Science Temple of America for 22 years now. And in my travels upon the highways and byways, I've come across a lot of people referring to themselves as Moorish Americans. it only takes a short amount of time, if you know what you're listening for, to ascertain whether a person has been within the temple gates and has touched the hem of the garment of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. As Moorish Americans, we speak a certain language. Many of the Moors are under the illusion that we're disunified as a people. That is a falsehood. Truth is but one. Any doubts of our own raising. Islam Moors? And why I'm saying this is that the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is foundational to our understanding, it's foundational to our salvation, it's foundational to our unity. Islam. So the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he knew, and knows that our people suffer from many different ills. One of them is moral and spiritual. This is what the Prophet said in a profound sense we suffer from. As a result, in our Quran, he lays it out to show what exactly what it is. What are the ills that we suffer from. Many people just defer to what we've so affectionately called over the years the 5 foes of man. But if you read through those specific chapters, you'll see there are sub-foes found within those chapters. So it's not just 5. There's plenty of foes that we suffer from. Without a foe, as the record says, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. Islam Moors? So what I like to do, I like to take it from the top. The reason why I want to take it from the top of this chapter, I kind of almost go word by word, if it pleases the chairman. The reason why I like to do that is because I never, when speaking to the Moors, and that is any group of Moors, I never assume that Moors know things. I assume that Moors don't know, and if they know, praise Allah, right? But I don't want to assume that they know and just start pouring out. So I want to take the time to go through. Much of my demonstration will be the defining of words and cross-referencing the Quran with itself. A lot of times Moors jump headlong into extending the learning and jump into other literature. But we have to learn to cross-reference the Prophet's body of work with itself. Our Prophet, our beloved Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, left a body of work for us to delve into. Islam, we have to take the time to get into that literature. Islam, especially, as the chairman so eloquently said, the divine constitution and bylaws and the Holy Quran that was handed down unto us by the Prophet. So what I do, again, taking from the top, holy instructions from the Prophet, the instability of man. Verse 1, and constancy is powerful in the heart of man, and temperance sway it whither it will, despair engrosseth much of it, and fear proclaimeth, behold, I sit unrivaled therein, but vanity is beyond them all. So let's go even with the title, right? Holy instructions from the Prophet, the instability of man, right? So, the title being instability of man, right? Instability, for those taking notes, which, I would love for everybody to be taking notes. The word instability comes from the Latin word instabilis, which is I-N-S-T-A-B-I-L-I-S. Again, I-N-S-T-A-B-I-L-I-S, right? Which is comprised of the words in, like the English word in, I-N, plus the word stabilis, S-T-A-B-I-L-I-S, right? Stabilis is Latin for stable, right? So instability is, or the aspect of stabilis or stabilis is to be stable within, right? So this is what the Prophet is addressing, right? The fact that we're unstable within ourselves. Islam. One thing that this carnal realm has done much to make us project, as the record says later in this chapter, our thoughts beyond our being, right? Instead of taking all of our energies, our life energies, and focusing within. Nothing in these in these lessons the Prophet gave us was designed for us to weaponize them and beat people with. I've seen Moors do this, and it's unfortunate that they do so because this goes against our instruction. All right. So the word stable, if you were to define it, some definitions of the word stable, right, are firmly established, not to be easily moved, shaken or overthrown, firmly fixed or settled in purpose, firm in resolution, not fickle or wavering, abiding, and durable. Even in that definition, for those that are familiar with the Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple of America, there are several words in that, in that definition that are found throughout our Quran. For example, the word resolution, all right? The concept of overthrown, that's found in our laws. To not overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby, right? The word abide is to be found in our Quran, which means to dwell in forever, right? So the prophet is asking us to be stable, right, within ourselves. If each one of us can be stable within ourselves, right, then we can do what the prophet said, especially as brothers, take unto ourselves a wife, right? So then we go and build a family, right? Which is the nucleus of nation building. See, we can't build a nation without families. We can't build a nation without being obligated, all right, to the core principles. Even we honor our true and divine prophets. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was reported to have said that, of 100, that marriage is half your faith, and the other half is cleanliness. Islam was, So these are things to consider, right? These are considered, as it says in the title, holy instructions. Let's define the word instruction. Instruction comes from the Latin word instruo, I-N-S-T-R-U-O, instruo, right? Again, comprised of N-I-N and struo, S-T-R-U-O, which means to join together, right? This is what an instruction does. It helps us to join together. Well, we know how many selves, do we have? We have two. If we were to name them, they're the higher self and the lower self, right? One has a tendency to dominate the other. So the prophet is teaching us how to create a harmony, or like he referred to as the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca, the uniting of the higher and the lower selves, right? Instruction comes from the word instruct, which means to teach, to educate, to impart knowledge or information. It says to enlighten, to direct, or to command. Like our Quran says, "O thou who art to command the nations." Islam says to furnish with orders, to order or enjoin. Pardon me. Okay. Then it also says instruction is the act of instructing. Okay. It says information, order, mandate, or direction. Information, order, mandate, or direction, right? Now, these aren't secular instructions. What kind of instructions are they? Holy instructions, right? Holy comes from the Anglo-Saxon hal, H-A-L, which means whole, meaning complete. Islam, it says free from sin and sinful affections, pure in heart. It says, pure in heart, pious, godly, hallowed, consecrated, which is a word that's found on our authority on the back of the questionnaire. Consecrated, or set apart to a sacred use. Okay? So these are all the things with these instructions that the prophet is, handing down onto us. This is what he's demanding of us, to be a holy people that are set apart, all right, who are joined together, who internally are stable, all right? And this is what abiding within these holy instructions does, okay? What I like to do, so in verse 1, he goes through several different words. Again, for those taking notes, you can write down inconstancy, intemperance, fear, and vanity. Okay? Inconstancy, of which I know we have a whole chapter on, but I just like to take the time to define it. Inconstancy is the quality of being inconstant. It says not constant, not firm in resolution, unsteady, or changeable. Okay? Why is it important to, understand the attributes of being inconstant, right? It's impossible to plan when you're dealing with inconstancy, right? It's impossible to, arrange yourself in an orderly fashion. It's impossible to mobilize if you're dealing with inconstancy. I use an example all the time. This is some years ago. There was a particular immigration bill that was handed down that would have affected the Mexican community, Mexican American community, in a way that they didn't seem that was fitting for them. The bill was supposed to be voted on a Monday. They announced that that the vote was coming up like the previous Tuesday. So they announced it on Tuesday. Thursday, the Mexican Americans had 80,000 people in the streets protesting, which means within 48 hours, they can mobilize 80,000 people at once. That community is not suffering from inconstancy. Islam wars, all right? So something to consider, all right? Next, I'd like to demonstrate the next word that's mentioned, which is intemperance. I'm doing something I don't usually do. I don't usually teach from notes, but there was so much in this chapter, I didn't, want to do a disservice by glossing over anything. So pardon me for reading for notes. Intemperance, from the Latin intemperantia, meaning the want of moderation, excess of any kind, where it says, swayeth it whither it will, that it's referring to in the verse is talking about the heart of the man. So it's like, what the prophet is warning us against is that our heart having the ability to be swayed by the cares of the world, right? And temperance is restraint, right? The ability to have restraint. Intemperance is the lack of restraint. The next word is despair. Despair actually, is defined as to desire, to give up all hope or expectation. The state of being without hope. Okay. Now, the interesting part about that, it talks about to give up all hope or expectation. The prophet tells us that he teaches us in our Quran that hope is the beacon light. Islam wars. So, I love that analogy because, if you just reflect on a ship, sailing on on the waters on a foggy night, trying to reach the shores, and it can't see the shore, but the watchtower, the tower is sending forth a beacon light so it can find its way back to the shore, right? So hope acts as a beacon light to guide people to the shore, right? On the front of our questionnaire, we know the shore is depicted as salvation. Islam wars. So praise Allah. Within that verse where it mentioned, with that section of the verse where it mentions despair, it says that it uses the word engrosseth. It says despair engrosseth much of it. So engross means to increase in bulk or quantity, right? So we talk about engrossing despair. That there's a bulk or quantity of despair, a high quantity of despair within our hearts because we allow ourselves to be consumed by the cares of the world, right? The next one mentioned is fear, right? Our prophet tells us that Moors are men upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny that is not uncertain nor unknown. So, we're not even supposed to be dealing with fear like that. Even in the biblical record, it says that, God, which we'll say Allah, never gave man a spirit of fear, right? So if Allah never gave us a spirit of fear, where we get it from? Food for thought. But fear is defined as, or described as, a painful emotion excited by an expectation of evil or the apprehension of impending danger. Anxiety, right? It uses the word relative to fear. It says, therein, it says, behold, I sit unrivaled therein. Okay? So, our hearts, having fear within our hearts makes it impossible for us to do as the prophet did and go forth before the nations of the world and trample on the Roman seal. Right? Then we come on the topic of this, right? This whole instability of man, this chapter is based on the concept of vanity, right? So we must understand vanity to understand the chapter. Vanity, if you look it up in the dictionary, it'll generally say to see the word vain, V-A-I-N. Vain is defined as empty, void, to vanish, having no real value or importance, unsubstantial and empty, all right? And then it says in that, towards the end of that verse 1, it says that vanity is beyond them all. So of the five folds, which are the 5 chapters, inconstancy, instability of man, insufficiency of knowledge, weakness, and misery of those five foes. Like I said, if you go to, through each, you'll get other foes that are mentioned, right? Whether in this chapter, the five sub foes are the ones we just, defined: inconstancy, intemperance, despair, fear, and vanity, which I refer to as five sub foes. Okay. Now, verse 2, right? Verse 2 says, "Weep not therefore at the calamities of the human state, rather laugh at its follies. In the hands of a man addicted to vanity, life then is but the shadow of a dream," right? So calamity, what is a calamity? A calamity is a great misfortune or disaster, right? It says, so we look at the condition of our people. As Moorish American Muslim, like, we love our people. The prophet says in the article, The Voice of the Prophet, if you have race pride and you love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America, right? Then it goes on to say that then you will have the power to redeem your race, and it goes into knowing who your forefathers were, so on and so forth, right? But, getting into this, we look at the situation of our people, just today, earlier today, not more than 4 hours ago, a pastor friend of mine, stopped by the temple, and he said, did you see this man laid out on the street? He said, I don't know if he's dead or not. So we went out there to check on the Asiatic brother, to make sure that he was all right. And, we called out to him and everything, and he awakened. But the sad part was he was just laid out on the sidewalk. His car's going up and down the street. Not one car pulled over to even check on that brother to make sure he's fine, right? And where our temple is, it's in an Asiatic neighborhood, right? So our people's hearts have waxed cold, right? And the calamities that we see, it's very easy to become consumed by this stuff, right? But the prophet says, it's weep not at the calamities of the human state, rather laugh at its follies. And he's not saying to laugh at our people, right? But we also know that our people have a way of doing things that can make you laugh sometimes. See, the laughter is the divine in you. The laughter is the Allah in man, right? He's asking you to access a higher point of your being in doing your divine work. Because if you can't access that, this work will beat you up if you just, it's a reason why he calls it the cares of the world in the front of that questionnaire, right? It's a reason why humanity is looked at or depicted as unconscious, and he's uplifting that fallen humanity coming out of the cares of the world. Islam Moors, praise Allah, right? So, then let me just continue reading, verse 2. In the hands addicted, in the hands of the man addicted to vanity, life then is but the shadow of a dream. So he says that vanity can be something you can become addicted to. We can become addicted to living a life of emptiness, right? Living a life of shallowness, living a life outside of ourselves. The prophet's calling to the prophet Noble Drali, and on the, basically like the first page of the Quran is referred to as our Redeemer, to redeem men from their sinful ways. But to redeem means to purchase back. You go to a pawn shop and you take a ring, they give you a value, and if you agree with that, they'll give you a particular amount, right? They'll give you a ticket, and then you have to come back in order to to redeem the item. Well, we were purchased by another people. I think you all know that history. And as a result, our prophet had to come back, being sent by the great God Allah, and redeem us to purchase us back, and to put us back on our rightful footing. All right. So verse 3. And if you all wouldn't mind, I would like to ask if it's possible to hold your questions until the end, because there's a lot to unpack here, and we know time is one of the most elusive things that we have. So if I could just get through the lesson, if you could just jot your question down, and at the end we'll open the floor for questions and answers, and I've been instructed to deal with the question and answers after the lesson. Islam Moors, praise Allah for your patience, right? Verse 3, it says, the hero, the most renowned of human character, what is he but the bubble of this weakness? The public is unstable and ungrateful. Why should the man of wisdom endanger himself for fools, right? So we have to look at that because, the hero, right? Just because we're called to be fearless, right? That don't mean you have to put on false airs to be something that you're not, right? We're called to be ourselves and no one else, right? None of us can be the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. You have to take the lessons he taught and filter that through your own personality and through your own experiences, You know, uh, those of you who are not sheiks, who are members, general members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, you come every week to the temple and you hear your grand sheik or your grand sheikess or your chairman or the various different sheiks and ministers come up and demonstrate. In your learning of the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America, you can kind of imitate, because you're imitating the prophet through them, but you have to find your own voice. You can't be your grand sheik. You can't be your chairman. You have to be the best you that you can be relative to the culture and the heritage, and the divine creed and nationality that was returned to us by our prophet. Because if not, then we're playing the role of the hero, trying to be something, right, that we're not, right? The prophet called the hero the most renowned of human character. He's popular. He has a reputation for being a hero. But, we're called to not demonstrate reputation and fame, to worry about what people are thinking about what we're doing. If we're laboring to, make sure that our intentions are pure, right? We're not to worry. We're not to even care about what the thoughtless think, right? We're just called to do our divine work. And I think a lot of times, especially in this social media era, we care so much about what others think of us, right? We care so much about people who don't even know us, right? Don't even know our movement, don't even know our prophet. We care what they think about us, But the communities that are successful outside of our particular community, they don't care what you think about them, right? They're doing the work that they were called to do, right? And we must do the same. This is what our prophet called us to do, right? He says, what is this but the bubble of this weakness? And remember, we have a whole chapter entitled weakness, right? But a bubble is an interesting thing because a bubble creates the semblance of its own atmosphere, its own environment, right? And it starts to float for a little bit, and it's beautiful to look at until it bursts because it didn't have substance, that it wasn't comprised of having substantive value. You see what I'm saying? So it looks good for a moment and then it bursts, right? This is, when we launch headlong into our own ideals and depart from what our prophet instructed us to do, right? So the prophet called this, this hero, character, right? A bubble of weakness, okay? Then he talks about the public, right? We do a lot to, to look good for the public, right? But he warns us. This is a caveat, right? It's almost like a caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. He says the public is unstable and ungrateful. Why should the man of wisdom endanger himself for fools? All throughout our Koran, the prophet warns us about the fool. In certain instances, he calls the fool twice. Oh, fool, fool, right? You have to take the time, when he mentions the fool, to look at the context in which he's describing what a fool is, right? Tells an old school song back in the day. I know all you young people wouldn't remember this. It was a song that says everybody plays the fool sometimes, but that's another demonstration, right? So if I were to go, confirming, cross-referencing the Quran with itself, right? So he talks about the hero, right? The hero represents false bravado, right? In chapter 9, right? Which we would compare this with chapter 9. Chapter 9 talks about having a polished coat, right? It talks about the holy smoke of piety, right? Putting on a persona. The word persona actually means mask, right? So you're putting on a mask of piety, when you know in your heart that you might not be pious, Islam, but you're doing it for the onlookers, right? It says, ever loathing drunkards, right? Thieves and courtesans, right? It talks about, same chapter 9, it talks about the tinseled coat of reputation. It talks about the loud professor. It talks about secret sin. This is all when you're dealing with the hero, right? The hero, he wants to look good, wants to look pious, hiding behind the holy smoke of piety. But if all that was peeled away, you see that individual was involved in a lot of secret sin and so on and so forth. When you put all that together, you come up with the word hypocrite. And Islam and Islamism, one of the worst things to ever be called is a hypocrite, right? You go to the chapter of sincerity, it demonstrates two words, hypocrisy and deceit. These are two attributes that a Muslim should always seek to stay away from, right? That's why we spend most of our time focusing on mastering ourselves, not beating up other people with the doctrines of Islamism. Right? It says, relative to the hero, all of this equals up to outward show. Right? The prophet in our Koran talks about outward show. Right? Now that bubble, we talk about the bubble of weakness. Bubble is defined as a vain pride. This is coming from, all these definitions are coming from Webster. It says bubble is defined as a vain project, false show, a fraudulent scheme of speculation. When you're dealing with a bubble or a bubble of weakness, as our prophet is saying, a fraudulent scheme of speculation, right? So our prophet is warning us against this, right? I'd like to go to verse 4. The man who neglecteth his present concerns to revolve how he will behave when greater, feedeth himself with wind while his bread is eaten by another. Right? Now, neglecting your present concerns, right? So if we were to look at this as a formula, right? So prophet he did things according to science, Islam. So he's very scientific in his approach with how he presented the teachings or the doctrine of Islamism to us, right? So if you just put down, for those taking notes, neglecting present concerns, then versus, or VS period, when greater equals feeding oneself with wind. And then it says, while his bread is eaten by another. Now, bread, there's a dictionary source, an encyclopedic source, known as the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. For those that don't have it, it's an excellent source. If you look up bread in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and I think my sister just pulled it out, praise Allah. Islam sister, you working, I see you, right? The Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, under the word bread, it says that bread metaphysically is defined as a universal substance, right? I'm a little older than a lot of you in the chat on this video. Bread back in the day in the 70s, 80s, we used to use bread as equivalent term for money. He better have my bread when I see him tomorrow. That but it had something to do with us having a substantive value. So the metaphysical application of bread, even biblically, when Abraham gave a tenth of the spoils to Melchizedek, he gave bread and wine, right? So that bread was those symbolic interpretations of things, but denoting the fact that Abraham gave substantive value. And why am I talking about Abraham? He's in our questionnaire. So another subject, right? Let me go to verse 5, right? So in 4, he gives you the formula, right? Don't neglect your present concerns, worrying about, when we get, we get our communities built and all this kind of stuff. Well, what about right now? Is your house in order? We worried about the outer community, do we have, the businesses and this, that, whatever. Is your house in order? Do your children love you? Is your wife, are you married? Let's start there. Are your children in the Moorish Science Temple of America? Does everybody have a nationality? Let's look at core things. Those are present concerns, right? So don't revolve how you are when greater. You'll get there eventually if you do what you're supposed to do now, right? So it says, when you do that, you're feeding yourself with wind, right? While your bread is eaten by another. All the things that we're supposed to be doing by having our act together, joining family to family, you coming to the temple to coordinate ourselves within a structure, then linking temple to temple within a state structure, right? And then the state temples, right, collectively linked with other states. Now you're putting together a national. Remember, this is a national organization with a Rotarian complexion. Islam. So if we're not demonstrating everything from its core value, which is you knowing thyself and Allah, then we're feeding ourselves with wind, talking about some stuff down the road. Islam, all right? Now, verse 5. Act as becometh thee in thy present station, and in more exalted ones thy face shall not be ashamed. All right? So, act, right? Moors must be what? Active and not passive, right? Moorish American Muslims are not to be found standing around on a meeting period. The Moorish American Muslim is supposed to be active, right? Somebody just said industrious in the chat. Islam, you're working, right? We must be industrious. But what does that mean, right? That word industrious comes out of the law, you know. Salvation, allowed unity, more science, simple America, the divine constitution and bylaws. Act 7, in part. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be what? Industrious, and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity, right? So I don't know if you notice in this discussion that we're having, so what monologue so far, discussion later, that we haven't left the Quran in our conversation. We haven't left the law in the conversation. Yeah, we've defined some words, but those words and their definitions tie right back to the Quran. You know, this is how Moorish Americans have to move. We have to stay on the foundation that our prophet laid, right? So act as becometh thee in thy present station, present, right? The prophet keeps us, he's reminding us if you hear it, right? There's an article entitled The Voice of the Prophet. All his body of work is his voice. So I asked him can you hear the voice of the prophet, right? So he's asking us, he keeps us reminding us about now. He mentions now twice in Act 6, right? So he wants us, not to sacrifice the present for future, because technically that doesn't exist. All you have is right now, right? So he talks about the present station. What is your present station? Yes, you're the human race of the subdivision called Asiatic, right? With a nationality of Moorish American, right? If you have a card, nationality card of Moorish Science Temple of America, you're a member. That's a station, If you've been found as per Act 7 of being faithful, then you might have been, might be worthy of some more exalted stations, adept, sheik, or minister. But even these, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't make sheiks, adept sheiks, and ministers. We don't necessarily make them off of, what they know per se. We make them off of how they live. See, what we're looking for, in this organization, we're looking for strong men and women with good character. In that same article, Voice of the Prophet says, come good people. He says good people. Islam, I know the movement, as the Prophet is reported to have said, was built on the backs of snakes and scorpions, right? But just because we were founded that way, we don't have to stay there, right? We can demand good character from our people. We can challenge our people to be better in their present station, right? And in more exalted ones, our faith will not be ashamed. But as we know, as the record also says, that glory and shame are what? Misplaced. Islam? So, praise Allah, right? So, to act, to define the word act, because we got 7 acts in our divine constitution and bylaws, and 7 in our additional laws, and extend honor to the additional laws, right? But act means to exert power, and we got a definition of power in our Quran. To put into motion, right? The word present means now existing or being at this time. What's another, phraseology for that in our Quran? Due time. Our prophet was divinely, sent in due time, right? Due time means right now, not a second early, not a second late. So he was aware of the now, of the present. Islam Moors? Praise Allah, right? I love you, Moors, for giving me this opportunity to be myself. I love you, Moors. It says, verse 6, says, what blindeth the eye, or what hideth the heart of a man from himself like vanity, right? It says, lo, which means to look. When thou seest not thyself, then others discover thee most plainly, right? Now, Prophet talks about the eyes, right? There are themes in our Quran, right? The Prophet uses, just like Prophet Noble Drew uses, just like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used creation to teach us higher knowledge, right? So he might tell you to look at the eye, or thine hand is it not a miracle? Holy Quran of Mecca, or the Great Quran of Muhammad, might tell you to look at the camel, how it's designed. Look at a gnat, how it is designed. They give you a lesson on that. Because in Islamism, as Muslims, information is taught in degrees, right? We never just pour knowledge out, right? Information, again, going back to Prophet Muhammad, he was taught over a 23-year period. Islam, the Prophet Noble Drew unfolded our movement in stages, right? He had the Moorish Science Temple of America, where the thought was founded in 1913 AD, right? But as we know, it was affectionately demonstrated as the old Canaanite temple at one point, right? They come down, organized 1925 as the Moorish Temple of Science, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and, organized November 29, 1926, as the Moorish Temple of Science, right? Then reorganized coming down to 1928 as the Moorish Science Temple of America. Are we to think that our prophet didn't know what he was doing and he had to make these changes because he was figuring it out along the way? Definitely not. He was a prophet of Allah, right? He was giving it to us as it was necessary at the time as we unfolded, right? As he was getting the help he needed, okay, now I can give him this part. Now I can give him this part. Islam? So praise be to Allah for the divine order of our prophet, right? Now, in this instance, in verse 6, he uses the eye. Talks about the eye. How often do we see the eye or hear of the eye, right? So we see it on our divine constitution and bylaws. If you look at how it's situated, it's at the top of the divine constitution and bylaws, in the middle, of the document, directly beneath the eye, which underneath it says Allah. Directly beneath that is the prophet. Same thing on the charter. Directly at the top of the charter is the eye. Directly at the bottom is the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, with the flames behind it. Islam Moors, all right? Signifying the fact that Allah sent Prophet Noble Drew Ali to this earth. Islam. But the eyes, right? If you were to go to chapter 37 in our Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, verses 8 and 9. Chapter 37, verses 8 and 9, right? It says, quote, "Are not thine eyes the sentinels that watch for thee? Yet how often are they unable to distinguish truth from error?" It says, "Keep thy soul in moderation. Teach thy spirit to be attentive to its good. So shall these, its ministers, be always to thee conveyances of truth." Islam, in those particular verses, you see, a graduation in terms of when you apply the lesson, the eyes go from being merely sentinels to ministers, right? To demonstrate, to become conveyances of truth. Islam. So the prophet tells us to keep our soul in moderation. Rhetorical question. If I were to ask you, where does the soul reside? Well, it's in our Quran, right? It says, the soul resides in the brain, right? So soul is connected with mind, right? So how does that connect with the law? Act 7, in part, salvation, Allah, unity, Moorish Science Temple of America, the divine constitution and bylaws, Act 7 in part, says all Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds, right? Pure with love and their bodies clean with water. Islam. So the prophet mentions hearts and mind as being connected, connected in purpose, unity of purpose. Right? So I'd like to go to verse 7. "As the tulip that is gaudy without smell, conspicuous without use, so is the man who sitteth himself up so high and hath not merit." All right? So interesting enough about, the word tulip, right? I extend honors to the Moabites who are online wearing their turbans, right? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali loved you all so much that he gave you the headdress of your foremothers, right? And placed that divine crescent pin within the third eye region, signifying that your third eye is open, right? But the word turban, if you do an etymology on the word turban, the word turban comes from the Persian word dhulban, which is dhulband, and dhulban means tulip. Okay. So the prophet mentions the tulip in this verse of the Quran, as the tulip is gaudy without smell. So the tulip is big, and it's a beautiful flower. It's big, but it doesn't have a smell, right? So relative to wearing, our sisters wearing the turban, right? Let me use an analogy, right? If you were to give someone a gift, right? You get the gift and you put it in a box. Right? A lot of people have a tendency to wrap the box, right? If you take a box and wrap it all up as a present, whatever, and give it to someone, and they, "Oh, thank you for the gift," and they open it up and open the box up, and there's nothing in it, they'd be like, "Why'd you give me an empty box?" Islam, sisters, if you're gonna take the time to wrap your turban, and y'all, I know what y'all go through in wrapping them turbans and getting the folds perfect and trying to look like your foremothers. Islam, that's how it's supposed to be, right? Make sure that, because remember that It's not about outward show. Islam, and I know that's Islamic precept, but at the same time, that's merely supposed to be a symbolic, right, of you understanding or comprehending the inner life, right? The modesty that you have going on inside, right? Then now you're able to demonstrate a right symbolic that when the world sees you arrayed in that, you're moving in such a way that is germane, meaning that it's consistent with, the Quran says that we must be consistent with ourselves, right? With the ultimate purpose of wearing the turban, Islam. So you don't want your turban to be gaudy without smell, as the Prophet would say. Islam. I wear a turban sometimes too. Don't So I'm talking to me too. So don't think I'm getting on the sisters. So it says, as the tulip is guarded without smell. This is talking about being abounding in outward show with no substance. Abounding in outward show with no substance. Right? Then that same verse 7, right? It says, one who sets himself up so high without merit. Okay? Now let's go through the Prophet's body of work to see what we're talking about, right? Question 92. Some would say key 92, and I'll question that. What title does Satan give himself? God. That's always been a powerful question or key to me, right? Because what is it addressing? It's addressing the notion of being self-professed. Islam, we're clear. This report of the Prophet said, good Muslims are born and not made. We understand this, right? If it was in your destiny to be an official in this movement and so on and so forth, no one could ever stop you from that. No one could hold you from that, right? But we don't seek after titles. We don't seek after thrones and scepters, right? As the chairman demonstrated earlier, the name is faithful. He says, then you will be entitled. Remember, people say, faithful is a title. Okay, that's a measure, that's a portion. But it literally says entitled to the name. When you understand English, it says the name of. Of means belonging to, faithful, right? There's another name mentioned in the Quran too, which is resolution. Islam, but that's another thing, right? Relative to that, sitting yourself up high without merit, if you were to go to chapter 29 in the Quran, verse 6, it says, he looketh among his people with discernment. He discovereth the abilities of men and employeth them according to their merits. Okay? There's a thing in secular government known as nepotism. For those taking notes, NEPOTISM. And nepotism is, as an example, metaphor, this is my man right here, this is my friend, this is my partner right here. I like how he move, we close. I'm going to put him in this position over here, not because he earned it, because that's my man. You understand what I'm saying? This is not Islamic. This is not from our culture. This violates our laws. A person should only hold an office or position, right, if they've earned that, if there's merit involved. Meritorious is the word. Islam? All right? And then chapter 29, verse 2, and this is the chapter of magistrate and subject I'm demonstrating. It says, the ensigns were not meant for thine own good, but for the good of the kingdom. All right? So we have to remember that. So any good that you've been able to enjoy in the Moorish Science Temple of America in terms of just anything, any honors that are bestowed upon you, right? That's not about you. Because again, that's vanity, right? Right? We're in the chapter defining vanity, instability of man, chapter 40, for those that just came in. But if you're demonstrating vanity, then you're doing it for your own, is a phrase, self-aggrandizement, right? Which means you're just doing things for your own benefit so people can worship you or hold you up in some type of adulation. And this is not Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Okay? So I'd like to go to verse 8, okay, in chapter 40, right? Verse 8 reads, the heart of the vain is troubled while it seemeth content. His cares are greater than his pleasures. Now, you'll keep noticing that the prophet in this chapter keeps talking about the heart of man. The heart of man. The heart of man, right? Where is the nearest place to meet Allah? In the heart. So why do we have all this other stuff going on in our hearts? That's what the prophet is asking, right? We're very familiar with the fact that if you get a book called Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, Phenomenal book. In the book, he's breaking down how the Greeks stole Egyptian culture. On page 39 in that book, George G.M. James says that the Moors are the custodians of the Egyptian mystery system. It's a mystery to the European. It's not a mystery to us. It's what it is basically that the Moors are the custodians of the ancient Egyptian adept chamber, the ancient, secret wisdom or the secret theology, of the ancient Egyptians. The Moors, or in this day and time, the Moorish Americans, are the custodians of that. See, that's what this fez is about, right? That's what those turbans are about with that crescent pin on it. Because see, without the crescent pin, that's not the prophet's degree. Islam, it's sisters in West Africa that wear the turban, just wrapped just like y'all, but it don't have the crescent pin. So relative to that, then that might be Senegalese, that might be Gambian, but you put that crescent pin in the middle, that's Moorish American, right? So we want to demonstrate the fact of the heart of man. In the ancient Egyptian mystery system, it dealt with something called intelligence of the heart. Intelligence of the heart. If anyone's familiar with ancient Egyptian mummification practices, they had something known as canopic jars, right? C-A-N-O-P-I-C, canopic jars, right? And they would take out various different organs and place within the 4 canopic jars. 4. What chapter are you in? Chapter 40. Drop the cipher, it's the 4. You look at the circle 7 on the front of the Koran. How many gates are there around the 7? 4. What does 4 represent? Foundation. Islam Moors? I do declare this is the Moorish Science Temple of America, all right? So we got to demonstrate some science in this demonstration, right? But, the ancient Egyptians and all that they did, and this is our forefathers, right? The ancient Mizraimites, reference chapter 45, right? And all that they did relative to mummification, it was one organ that they left. They even took the brain out, came in through the nose, took the brain out. Didn't mess with the heart. They left the heart in the body and then mummified it because they said they never truly understand the true function of the heart. Islam? Why? Because this is where Allah dwells. Islam? Oh, by the way, where it says in the question there, where is the nearest place to meet Allah? In the heart? That's question 4. Islam more. It's another 4 for you. So if you think the prophet didn't lay this out or didn't know what he was doing, you need to go back and research his body of work. Thank you so much, Brother Chairman, for this Quran class. So we can get into that. Give honest. Right? So it says the heart of the vein, verse 8. It says vein, it says the heart of the vein. We're dealing with, vein, people that are vain. It says the vein is troubled while seeming content. It says his cares are greater than his pleasures. The cares that are greater than pleasures, that's you dealing with anxiety. Modern day, we call it anxiety, right? Worried about the future. Oh, how am I going to do this? How are we going to do this? Right? Cares are greater than pleasures, right? And on our questionnaire cover, talks about the cares of the world. We mentioned that earlier, right? For a biblical reference, and I'm doing that because not all of our people are Muslim, right? So you got to be able to, know how to reference Bible. It is reported the prophet said, "Don't throw away your Bibles." Islam, a lot of the references for things the prophet gave us are found in those ancient records from Palestine. Islam, don't forget our sciences are broken up. Egypt, India, Egypt, and Palestine. Islam. But in Matthew chapter 13, verse 22, right? It says that which was sown amongst the thorns, it talks about cares of the world, that which was sown amongst the thorns, one who hears the word, but the cares of the world are a deceitfulness of riches, choke the word and proves unfruitful, right? So Matthew 13:22 deals with the cares of the world. So the prophet didn't just pull that out of another world. No, he was referencing ancient. Remember, he was here 2,000 years ago, called Jesus as well. Islam. Verse 9 reads, his solicitude cannot rest with his bones. The grave is not deep enough to hide it. He extended his thoughts beyond his being. He bespeaketh praise to be paid when he is gone, but whatsoever promiseth it, parts out. Whosoever promiseth it, deceiveth him, right? So, solicitude. Solicitude is uneasiness of mind occasioned by fear of evil or the desire for good, concern or anxiety. Okay? That's solicitude. uneasiness, right? Now, if we, again, going back in the Quran, I love the reference to Quran against himself, right? It's 48 chapters, it's 48 rooms. I love to run in and out the rooms. Chapter 37, verse 4, right? It says, it is not in flesh to think, it is not in bones to reason. The lion knoweth not that the worm shall eat him, the ox perceiveth not that he is fed for slaughter. Okay? Meaning that the highest aspects that you're going to need to reason, with the higher self to get to the state of the knowledge of self or the mastery of yourself is not found within the bones or the physical. Okay? The highest aspects dealing with soul, obviously that its actions are thinking, understanding, reasoning, and willing. All right? Going down to verse, that's still in verse 9. It says, even in death, the vain, I'm paraphrasing, even in death, the vain still has no rest, right? Because it talks about he wants praise to be spoken of him even when he's gone. That's still vanity after the physical form is, no longer functioning, okay? Something we're warned against, okay? Verses 9 and 10 in this chapter both deal with vanity after what man calls death, all right? Now, if we were to go down to verse 11, which is a very uplifting instruction, it says, do well whilst thou livest, but regard not what is said of it. Content thyself with deserving praise, and thy posterity shall rejoice in hearing it, right? So, praise Allah for that. And even in all of our sacrifices, the Prophet Noble Drali left room for us to do good in this world, right? If you want a nice car, praise Allah, get a nice car. If you want a beautiful home, go praise Allah, go get you a beautiful home, right? But he's warning us, he says, I want to quote him properly, regard not what is said of it, right? Don't do it because you're going to worry about what other people say. Don't do it for reputation or fame. That's the caveat. That's let the buyer beware. Don't do it for that purpose because now you're caught up in vanity. There's a comedian once, a while back, he was talking about this back again. Like now, again, I'm dating myself. It's back when spinning rims were out on cars. They said, the funny thing about spinning rims, while you're in the car, you can't even see them spin. Right? So again, you're doing it, right? You're doing it for other people. Your joy comes in other people nodding and pointing at you, right? And this is what the prophet is warning us against. Again, that's still reputation and fame, but ultimately it's vanity, right? Remember, vanity is beyond them all, okay? So it says, in dealing with that, do well whilst thou livest, but regard not what is said of it. It's a few points there, okay? Number one, care not for what the thoughtless think. Islam. Number two, do not be swayed by general opinion which offers no proof of truth. Okay? In that same verse 11, he says, content thyself with deserving praise, and thy posterity shall rejoice in hearing it. I extend honors to the chairman because at the onset of the meeting, he was reading the law and had a child on his lap. Islam? Oh, our prophet would have loved that. I know he's smiling down from the soul plane saying that because he said, it is reported that he said, he came for the young and yet unborn. Prophet Noble Drali loved children, right? And the reason why he loved children, if you go into some of his early, and what's handed down to us by the Moorish American elders, he had a pretty tumultuous childhood growing up himself, So anything that had to do with, blessing children. There's even an article in the Moorish Guide when the Moorish American Muslims got together and gave out Christmas toys to Asiatics during Christmas. Now that's love, because we don't celebrate Christmas in that thing. And I know the Moors are arguing about that right now. But we're not going to do that here. We're in love right now, right? But I'm talking about December 25th. We don't celebrate December 25th, but our people do, right? So there's nothing wrong if you want to get together and do an uplifting act on that day because, you're demonstrating love. Islam. And that's a sure way to prove that within yourself, not to nobody else, that you're not demonstrating vanity. Islam was? Praise Allah. Right? It says now, in that content thyself with deserving praise, and thy posterity shall rejoice in hearing it. Again, 3 points. 1, know that to be content is to be happy. 2, he says deserving praise. Right? Now we Muslims, so we're clear that all praise is due to Allah. Right? But we also understand that Allah and man are one. What man? Carnal man? No. The man of soul? Mm-mm. Spirit man. Allah and spirit man are one. Islam Morris, right? And then the third point I would elucidate from that verse is thy posterity. How often do we think about the lineages that are coming from us, right? Whether we realize it or not. And I praise Allah that this is being recorded, right? Because we're creating a running record, right? So, and pray, Allah willing, it'll be preserved to the point where future generations can look back and see that their ancestors. See, we're writing history right now, right? The only reason we know what to do with the Moorish Science Temple of America is the Moorish Americans of the first generation, right? At the behest and decree of the Prophet, left impeccable records, right? Impeccable records. We know how to do our monthly reports, right? We know how to host a convention. We have the convention poster, which is a landmark in the Moorish Science Temple of America. So we would remember when convention is, with all due respect for those who hold a different convention date, right? But the point is, we have different landmarks. What do you think that the charter of the Moorish Science Temple of America is? Those 10 wonders of the world that the chairman demonstrated, right? For those who are not familiar with landmarks are similar to if you're lost, right? And you're driving and you're like, wait a minute, I know we passed that McDonald's 3 times. you got to go a different way because Islam. So the goal is to get back to the state of mind of our forefathers. So on the charter, the Prophet left certain signs and symbols. It said the signs and symbols are what? For conscious minds, right? He left certain signs and symbols to show a particular path to travel back home. It said backwards through the ages, masterminds trace themselves and thus they know Islam. So to going back, see, if you've ever lost your keys, I like to break things all the way down so we can relate. If you've ever lost your keys, you trace yourself back, right? And then when you finally figure out where they were, you go, that's right, because mine never does forget. You might have some brain fog, but mine didn't forget Islam. But what it is, you got too much cares of the world going on and confused heart and mind, Islam. But you can surely trace yourself back, and thus you will know Islam. So I'd like to go to verse 12 at this point. We're almost there, Morris. Praise Allah for you being patient. Thank you, Brother Chairman, for allotting the time. Right? Verse 12, as the butterfly who seeth not his own colors, as the jasmine which filleth and not the scent it casteth around it, so is the man who appeareth gay and biddeth others to take note of it. And, appeareth gay, that's appearing happy. Appearing happy, not being happy. These are two different things, right? We're to study the science of happiness. Science to happiness. Islam Morris? And it says to know that to be what? To be content is to be happy. Islam Morris? And there's nothing more frail than desiring things. And we know that the sin lies not in the sin is in the wish, the desire, not the act, right? So we still ain't left the Quran, right? We still, there's a preponderance of evidence as to what we need to do. Islam, all right? So in this verse 12, right, that appearing gay, that appearing happy, a few points, right? Chapter 9, verse 10 in the Holy Quran. Chapter 9, verse 10. Verse 1. Oh, hold on. That's not verse 1. That doesn't sound right. Let me go to chapter 9. Pardon myself. Chapter 9, verse 10. It says, Allah and all master men judge by what they are and not what they seem to be, not by their reputation and fame. So all that appearing, or what they say, modern day, keeping up appearances, all of that, not Moorish. Not Moorish. You better be you. That's the only way you can be consistent, is if you be you, right? And if people are comfortable with you being you, they'll look more Moorish. They'll be all right. Be you and keep unfolding the best you that you can do. You can be, all right? And that part in verse 12 where it says, bidding others to take note of it, right? You're looking for the applause of your brethren to delight yourself, right? If you go to chapter 26 in the Holy Quran, verse 6, chapter 26, verse 6, the context of that verse is, lifting up the pebbles from the shadow stream. And it says, with the applause of his brethren, he delighteth himself. That's the context. But, to this purpose of vanity, when we bid others to take note of what we're doing, right? we're looking for the applause of our brethren, you know, and that's not what it's about. See, we're supposed to be in this to please Allah, right? And doing other things other than that, we've actually become idol worshippers. Islam. So praise Allah. I'd like to go to verse 13. To what purpose, saith he, is my vesture of gold? To what end are my tables filled with dainties? If no eye gaze upon them, if the world knows it not, give that now. Let me just stop there. Okay. So he's looking for, like, okay, I got all this stuff. What's the use of it if people can't see what I have? Because I can't enjoy it from a vanity perspective unless others are bearing witness to what I possess. Okay. So at 13, right? I'd like to hit a couple points relative to that. In this current phase of secular society, attention is the new currency. Uplifting acts need not to be publicized for reputation and fame. Islam. Praise Allah, here in District 12 in Atlanta, Georgia, where our temple is located, we do a lot of uplifting acts that we don't film and we don't take pictures of, because we're not trying to please man. We're trying to help our people and please Allah, right? And there's a happiness, that comes about by seeing that you're able to assist your people. The forerunner, the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, says in his book, if you don't have the book by Marcus Garvey, Message to the People. So it's a small white and blue book. There's a different version of that now, but get the white and blue one. In that book, and pardon me for not being able to recall it this time, because I didn't forget, not able to recall it this time, the exact chapter, but it says in there, never allow your people to think that they are friendless. If you cannot help them, make sure you send them somewhere direct them to a source where they can get the help, right? But never send your people away friendless, right? Because this is when our people, actually become their lower selves, right? When they think that they have no help in this world, right? And we're here to demonstrate friendship, Morris. Friendship with our people. Chapter 7, what is it? The friendship of Jesus and Lamas. Islam. And when you get into that and really unfold that and find out who Lamas was, there was a time when Jesus was in a city called Benares, and the priest, Jesus was good for really chastising the priests. The priests sought to kill him in Benares in India. So it was Lamas Brahmins that found out about that scheme and got him out and got him to the city called Kapavistu, right, amongst the Buddhist priests. That's how the dialogue with him and Bharata Arabo happened, that it was his friend, Lamas Brahmas, that got him away from danger. So we all need a friend at some point, and we can't build no nation unless we have a friendship first. And friendships can't take place unless we build a relationship with one another. So I can't build no nation with you if I don't know you. All right? I can't build no nation with you if I can't trust you. Praise be to Allah in our temple. We have sisters, we have elders, and we have children. So every demographic that you can have within a nation, we have present in our temple, right? In order for us to be friends, I got to be able to trust you around these babies that's here in this temple. I got to be able to trust you around these sisters in this temple, because that's one thing in Islamism we don't play. That's why the Prophet said to get married, because we don't play brothers running sisters. We don't play that. These sisters are queens to us. They're royal. These are the daughters, the descendants of Ruth the Moabitess. So we don't play nothing about brothers harming those sisters. Islam, the Prophet commanded us, decreed to have a greater part of self, a deeper appreciation for womanhood. And we do that. And brothers, all you grand sheiks and chairmen that are on this call, please allow the sisters in your temple, I don't want to say give them a voice. Create a space and opportunities for them to demonstrate the voice that Allah has given them. The sisters should be speaking more from the altar, right? And expressing that. That's what's wrong with the movement now. The sisters are not being heard like they should. But I do declare in the time of the Prophet, the sisters were grand governesses running states, grand sheikesses and running temples. Shout out to Sister Alsop Bay, Sister Whitehead Hill. Islam Moors, we honor our foremothers. So praise Allah, right? Still in verse 13, couple more points. Quoting the verse again, do well whilst thou liveth, but regard not what is said of it. So live well and do well, Moors. Now, the last part of that verse on 13, it gives some instructions. It says, now this is when we're not demonstrating vanity. It says, give thy raiment to the naked, and thy food unto the hungry. So shalt thou be praised, and feel that thou deserveth it. And again, remembering we're Muslim, right? And that spirit man, any praise is given to us, we hurry up and get that off ourselves and say, praise Allah. Islam, praise Allah. Verse 14, right? Why bestowest thou in every man the flattery of unmeaning words? Thou knowest when returned to thee thou regardest it not. He knoweth he lieth unto thee, yet he knoweth thou wilt thank him for it. Speak in sincerity, and thou wilt hear with instruction. Flattery, Moors. Flattery is a dangerous thing. It's especially dangerous for leaders to submit themselves to flattery. Flattery is a tool that ones that who are not sincere will utilize to disarm the leader, to allow the leader to allow that person into their confidence, right? Flattery is defined as, flattery comes from the French. It means to pat, to stroke, or to caress, to gratify by praise, to appease by applause. Flattery is actually the act of one who flatters. False, insincere, venal praise, that venal is V-E-N-A-L, venal praise, adulation, right? A-D-U-L-A-T-I-O-N, adulation, or cajolery, C-A-J-O-L-E-R-Y, cajolery, right? All of those words mean to flatter with unmeaning words, right? So if you, to unpack that, in dealing with flattery, the prophet says in the verse, you're dealing with unmeaning words, words that have no meaning, words that have no divine purpose set for an agenda, right? Second point, it says, the flatterer says, he knoweth that he lieth unto thee, yet he knoweth thou wilt thank him for it. So both parties are caught in vanity, the giver and the receiver. Islam, kind of similar to the verse in the Quran where it talks about oaths. You know, the Moorish Temple of America, we don't take oaths. You know, we take vows. We take a vow is a solemn pledge. We do those, but we don't give oaths. Read your Quran and find out why, right? And then later in that verse it says, speak in sincerity, and thou wilt hear with instruction. So now you go to your chapter of sincerity, and you read it slowly, read carefully the doctrines of the Moorish Temple of America, and in demonstrating sincerity, Moors, which is technically, when you understand what that is, sincerity is your first school, okay? I see you smiling, Brother Chapman. Speak in sincerity, and thou wilt hear with instruction. Because now when you're sincere, right, now you can hear what? The small, still voice. Now you can hear Allah, and you can't be deceived by the flatterer. Islam, how I love the law. Praise Allah, right? Go down to 15. The vain delighteth to speak of himself, but he seeth not that others like not to hear him. Okay? So in verse 15, we're dealing with, again, vanity, speaking of yourself, right? Second point on that, being so wrapped up in praising yourself that you don't even realize that others don't even like to hear you, right? And that's the thing. So when we're communicating, right, you know, in order to get the message of the prophet out, you must be a skillful communicator, right? For those taking notes, write down the 7 liberal arts. I'm not going to go too far with that, but one of them is rhetoric. In a connotative, because you know you have connotative and denotative in English, right? Connotative is layman's, what people consider to be, you know, layman's stuff. In a connotative state, rhetoric is, you know, kind of stuff you just throw around and doesn't have any meaning. That's not the essence of it. The essence of it is the denotative, right? In its denotative sense, of rhetoric deals with the art of structuring a discourse or an argument, right? Most, not all, most politicians who have to deal with what is referred to as statecraft. Write that word down. Statecraft, which is the science of government, the science of statehood. All Moorish Americans should study statecraft. This is when you're going into the realms of political science. Black according to science means death, right? What science? Political science, Islam, and or social science. sociology, right? But in dealing with that, you're dealing with more so the higher meaning of rhetoric, and how to demonstrate that. In order to reach our people, you got to be able to connect to them heart wise. Elder told me a long time ago, because when we first moved in this area, it was we're in blood territory, where the temple is at. So when we first set the temple up over here, I went out and talked to the soldiers that were out on the street, and I said, I want to talk to your general. I want to introduce the Moors to the general. And I used a lesson that one of my Moorish elders taught me. I said, well, how do you speak to the street soldiers and be effective with the prophet's lessons? And he gave me a lesson. He said, the strong rule the weak, but the wise rule the strong. Right? So if you want to reach the soldiers, right, you speak directly to their heart. Islam, you don't try to do what they do. You gotta remember, we misinterpret chapter 9, human equality, right? So we'll say you meet them where they're at, right? And in its misinterpretation, we find ourselves doing what they do. Yeah, remember, Jesus sat with the murderers, the thieves, and extortioners, but he didn't murder, he didn't steal nothing, he ain't extort nobody. Islam, or he just sat with them and gave holy and divine teachings to them. Islam. But moving forward, right, I want to demonstrate. So we're almost there. We got 2 more verses, right? So in verse 16, right, 16 says, if he has done anything worth praise, if he possesseth that which is worthy of admiration, his joy is to proclaim it, his pride to hear it reported. The desire of such a man defeateth itself. Men say not, behold, he hath done it, or see, he possesseth it, but, quote, mark how proud he is of it. I also would like to interject. In this chapter, within the verse, there are several times that the prophet puts quotation marks around certain statements, right? Study to show thyself approved and find out where or what he's quoting. Islam Moors? So praise Allah. In that particular verse, verse 16, he uses the word if twice, right? If is a small word, so we have a tendency to jump over it, like we know what it means. But again, I never assume anybody I'm speaking to knows what I'm talking about, right? So I have a formula I use for myself. If I'm reading and I reach a word that I'm not sure of the meaning of it, the formula is stop, define, and then apply. Stop, define, and then apply. So when I got the if, I defined it. I stopped and I defined it. If introduces a conditional sentence. And verse 16, starting with if, calls into question the works of the vain, right? I'll give you another if. In the law, Salvation, Allah, Unity, Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Act 1. Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America has the power to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs, what? If he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That if is a small word, but it's a huge word. Islam Moors? Conditional. Okay? So now in that verse it says, if he has done anything worth praise, if he possesses that which is worthy. So in both ifs, he used the word, in one instance he used the word worth, which symbolizes value, right? For those taking notes, write down the word axiology, which is A-X-I-O-L-O-G-Y. A-X-I-O-L-O-G-Y. Axiology is the science or the study of understanding value, or that which is something is worth. Okay? So in these 2 sentences, he says, if he's done anything worth praise, that's worth there. If he possesses that which is worthy, worth and worthy, right? Praise Allah, I extend honors to the chairman for finding me worthy to come before you all to speak. Because in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't just allow people to just come up to the altar and speak. You have to be vetted, Moors. You have to have a record of good works. And that record has to be a consistent record of good works. All right. So that's that. Then In 16, it talks about the desire of such a man defeateth itself. Vanity equals desire. Okay? And then again, you could cross-reference or compare with, an abbreviation for compare with is C.F. Comes from the word confere, which means to compare, right? Chapter 9, verse 16 in the Koran. The sin lies in the wish, the desire, not the act. Wish, here's a formula. Formulas all through the Koran. Wish plus desire equals sin. So what is sin? The prophet came to redeem us from our sinful ways. Well, what is sin? Dwelling in the wish plus the desire, right? The Buddha that came 6 times before the Messiah of 2,000 years ago, when the prophet was here 2,000 years ago, 6 times before that, the Gautama said that, what did he say? He said that desire is reported to have said, desire leads to suffering. Islam. So he was telling us ultimately that sin leads to suffering, right? Now it says that in verse 16 it says, things that men don't say about the vain. Men don't say, behold, he hath done it. They don't say, see, he possessed it. They say, mark how proud he is of it. The word mark, read carefully, the Doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Mark in question 85, key 85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774. Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian, right? Vanity deludes to the names and principles that delude the slavery Moors. So if we're demonstrating vanity Moors, we're demonstrating Negroism, blackism, colorism, principles that delude the slavery. And vanity equals pride, more specifically, false pride. And we're going to close out with verse 17, right? Verse 17, the heart of man cannot attend at once to too many things. He who fixes his soul on show loseth reality. He pursueth bubbles. We talked about those bubbles earlier. He pursueth bubbles which break in their flight, while he treads to earth what would him honor. Okay? So to pump the brakes on that. So in that verse, for those taking notes, you can write down the heart of man. Remember, that's been mentioned several times in this chapter. Right? The heart of man, then he who fixes his soul on show. Remember in chapter 15, I believe it was, Jesus said, my heart is fixed. But what was his heart fixed on? Islam. Then write down losing reality or loseth reality. Write down bubbles which break in their flight. And then write down he treads to earth. Okay? And we're going to go through each one of those, and then I'll be ready to yield the floor for questions, if it pleases Allah, and definitely if it pleases our chairman. Verse 1, the heart of man. I'm not verse 1, the first part of the verse. The heart of man. Okay, question 4, where's the nearest place to meet Allah? In the heart. He who fixes his soul on show. The soul resides in the brain and relates to the mind. Its actions are thinking, understanding, reasoning, and willing. Reality that he describes as, quote, losing reality, unquote, is to lose focus on the only reality, which is truth. Truth is art, and art is Allah. Bubbles. Back to that again. Bubbles are false ecosystems, false biospheres that break in their flight, i.e., their false existence bursts in their attempt to ascend. Right? Meaning basically man's ideal, right? Right? And in that instance, I would say carnal man's ideal. Islam, the prophet is reported to have once said, your way you want, your way you will have, but your way will not work. Islam Moors, stop figuring out how your salvation will come and just follow me. Islam. And last but not least, treading to earth. Treading to earth speaks to being bound to carnality, governed by nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. And Moors, I would like to close the research part out with this statement, and then I'm going to read a section from the prophet, And then I could yield the floor for questions. Many foes are derived from fleshly things, but vanity is beyond them all. Islam was? Praise Allah. May Allah be pleased with the works that we sow while in the flesh. Islam? What I would like to quote from our beloved Prophet Noble Ali, the angel, right, is from our pamphlet, Moorish Literature, which are excerpts from the Moorish God newspaper. And this is from the editorial, A Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations. And this is the last paragraph in that editorial. I always like to close out on the Prophet. And it reads, "So I, the Prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way. And without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, politically, or economically, etc., or etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment, in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action and their deeds, and have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people, continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for their moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into the marvelous light." From the Prophet. I now yield the floor. I'm yielding the floor to any questions that may come through from our beloved audience, our most august audience that are arrayed tonight. I yield. Are there any questions? Islam, Brother Chairman?
Islam. Praise Allah. Just wanted to show more that feature is how we're going to facilitate the questions. If you have any, just hit that feature down there. But I do have a question. First, praise Allah, honest to his prophet. Very, very informative and inspiring lesson there on how to study this chapter. And being that we have Moorish Americans from all different levels of experience and tenure within the movement, I would like to know if you can just summarize, give us the top 3 things that you've been doing to help you conquer this instability. Because you express you've been in the movement for 22 years. It's clear as day that you study the lessons. It's very obvious that you live a life accordingly and you apply these. But just you can give us just 3 quick tips. You know, what can we do on a daily basis to make sure that we are conquering this instability? So that's just my question.
Islam, praise Allah for sparking that thought. I'll put it this way: one Allah, one Prophet, one temple. Right. So to go into that more, there is nothing that you're going to experience in this manifest that you'll be able to conquer without summoning the divine within yourself, without summoning Allah, but you got to know Allah. You got to take the time to commit yourself to learning as much as you can about Allah, right? How do we learn about Allah? We learn about Allah through his prophets, right? All of his prophets have, a methodology of teaching. If we were to take the last 3 incarnations of those spirits of truth, Prophet Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Noble Drew Ali, each one of them had a different mode of teaching, right, about Allah. Prophet Jesus taught according to parable, right? For those taking notes, the word parable comes from the word parabola, Parabola. And if there's any mathematicians on the line, a parabola is a mathematical formula, right? So what he was saying in terms of parable, because he was talking to an agrarian society, people that were farmers and stuff like that. So many of his parables had to do, he was teaching them about Allah, about what was going on around them, okay? Prophet Muhammad, he taught, in a reality form. He taught through a methodology of restriction. He came pre-Islamic Arabia, and it was pre-Islamic to them because Islamism is the old-time religion. But to Arabia, blood vendettas. When daughters were born and men didn't want daughters but wanted sons, they buried their daughters alive. There was a lot of savagery going on in Arabia, at that time. So he knew that he had to give them a particular thing to humble them, which is why the methodology of prayer that was given to them dealt with prostration directly. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he taught according to science because he knew we had been lulled to sleep by the European nations. So he taught in a methodology where, it was he was challenging us to think. Nothing brought by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, nothing is face value. If you surface dwelling with the Prophet, you haven't even really came all the way into the organization yet. You got to take the time to dig beneath the rocky soil, and not in a scanty way. You got to get up under there and find out what's going on, and there you'll find the richest gems abound. So and studying the lessons of the prophets, and extend honors to the great Quran of Muhammad, of which power and authority is derived. Within that, the Quran 2:136, Surah 2, Ayat 136, it says that we and basically what we say is we honor all true and divine prophets, but it says that ultimately that we honor Abraham and Moses and Jesus, and mentions all these different prophets, and it says we do not make a distinction between any. We don't elevate one above the other because they were all sent from Allah, Islam, and there's not a contradiction between any of the messages, right? Prophet Noble Drew Ali's message was only, and I'm tying this back to, I'm coming back around to your question. Prophet Noble Drew Ali's mission was different in that he was the only prophet that had to teach a people that we know of, that had to teach a people who they were. All the other prophets that came, the people knew who they were. Okay, as an example, why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? To save who? The Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the pale-skinned nations of Europe who were governing a portion of Palestine at that time. They knew they were Israelites, they just worshiped a foreign God or in a foreign way, right? So in our understanding what the prophets taught about Allah, then we're able to take and apply that to ourselves, right? To begin our journey, right? And again, that's why on the nationality card, right? I do hereby, we honor all true and divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. But it also said, I do hereby declare that you are Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca, right? So we can't get around the fact this is a religious organization, and the mandates of this religious organization can only be actualized, conceptualized, and actualized within the Moorish Science Temple of America. You must attend the temple, and with respect to the virtual platform, because this is enabling a lot of people who might not have a temple in their area to to hear the message, right? But we got to get to the point where, for those that don't have temples in their area, they find the sincerity within themselves to link up to Moors, because these grand governors and these grand sheiks, can issue charters, right? And they can issue warrants of authority and letters of authorizations for study groups or whatever, or Moorish missions, whatever. So Moors who don't have the teachings in their area can establish it. But now the thing to ask: are you strong enough to carry this work? Because you're going to go through some things in this movement, right? But the prophet, he told you in the voice of the prophet, that he needed strong men and women, right? So you can't get, like the first sign of trouble coming, you out the temple back in Asia. Don't get me wrong. In the current state of affairs, we have to work with who we can work with.
Islam.
And this is what, a lot of Moors, our temple is in that type of condition right now. We're confederating with other temples who are in a similar condition to try to get the work done. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have a city where there are multiple temples and the temples are not working together.
That's right.
You know, we're laboring to change that. But, you know, Holy Quran of Mecca, Great Quran of Muhammad, says that Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is within themselves. So for me, it's those three things that have kept me on the road. You know, as Sheiks were taught to keep our hand to the gospel plow, right? So it's those three things. You know, Allah, one Allah, not a bunch of different Allahs. One Allah, one prophet in this dispensation of time. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the last prophet for these days. We give honors to all the others, but he was the last one for these days. We're still under that dispensation of time, right? So one prophet and one temple. You know, I'll give one short prophecy and then I'll yield to the next question. I want to say it's think this over, you Moors, or the general laws, pardon me. But the prophet says, when speaking to the Moors, any group of Moors, that's a prophecy. Why is it a prophecy? Because under the prophet, there was only one group of Moors. So for him to say any group of Moors,
Islam. Wow.
So we're finding ourselves now where we're speaking to other groups of Moors. But when you do that, you must imitate the prophet. Islam. So it's all going to come back around, Moors, you know, but we got to demonstrate hope and love and joy and let love and joy be the back of toil. Islam. So I yield the floor. I pray Allah to answer your question.
It does, Mo. Islam. You demonstrated the general law very, very well there, Sheik. Islam.
Yeah.
So
Praise Allah.
we're going to go to our sister CEO. Our sister Evisa, I always get her name off, but we're going to go to her and then we'll go to our sister, Sheik Shipment Bay after that.
Islam. Iblis.
Iblis. Pardon me, sister.
I apologize, Islam. I accidentally raised my hand. But gratitude for replying. Peace and love, Islam.
Islam, sister. Islam. So we're going to go to our sister D. Shipment Bay, then we'll go to our brother Akil Bay.
Islam, praise Allah, praise Allah, praise Allah, and honest to our prophet, honest to all honors that have already been given. Islam, Grand Sheik Ranesi-El, you said to imitate I, the prophet. What does that look like, Islam?
Okay, so let's go for the record. So, right. So, when you're talking about thought, word, and deed, you know, what is that? Okay, let's go one by one, because you have to remember, prophet taught a lot of times he taught in triunes. Anything you see grouped in triunes, you should pay a special attention to that, because it's a repetitive thing in the prophet's work. Thought, right? What does it mean to imitate the prophet's thought? Well, where are the prophet's thoughts found? Right? The prophet's thoughts are found in his written works, in his body of work. Okay? So, primary sources. So, we will go to his Koran, his questionnaire, his divine constitution and bylaws, right? Along with those primary works, I would also add the Moorish Guide newspapers. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the owner and publisher of the Moorish Guide newspaper. Okay? Nothing appeared in that paper without his approval. You know, nothing is published, you know, in a publisher's work without the publisher's approval. Okay? Secondary works, you can go to, you know, people that wrote about the prophet that were closer to that day. Tertiary works, you know, would be like in our day, you know, as an example, I'm a Moorish American author myself, right? So I draw off of the first and the second generation, but I lean heavily on the first generation of what was brought. So in order to glean the prophet's understanding, you know, you would draw from that primarily. You would also attend his temples, right? Because there's a spirituality, there's a presence. We talked about the now. You're being within the now or being in the present. There's a presence that actualizes itself when Moorish Americans who are laboring to be sincere to the prophet's works are gathered together. There's an ether, you know, pursuant to Act 1, there's an atmosphere, you know, that's created where you know the prophet's spirit is present which is the spirit of Allah ultimately, right? When a lot of times, I give an example for us on this past holy day, The ethers were so high, we didn't even realize it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Somebody had to say, Mo, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Mo, we had left the body, Mo. We weren't concerned nothing about the cares of the world, time. Mo had to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was almost 1. Needless to say, he was the first one that left, right? After that point. But saying all that to say, so that, that's another way to find, thought, right? Word, right? Prophet Noble Drew Ali presented himself a certain way, right? I'll give you an example. In this this current era, it's become popular to debate Moorish openly. That's a new thought. That's a new custom that does not find itself in the works of our founder. The prophet had a lot of detractors. Familiar with that word? People that were against him. All right. I'm just right now. In a couple of weeks, I'll be publishing a book called "The Persecution of the Prophet," where we go through all the prophet went through to give us what we're talking about today. In that process, so I'll give you an example. Prophet comes back off the road after making a tour around to the temples. Stops at the home office, 3603 Indiana Avenue. And is walking down to 3140, and sees all the temple's office furniture thrown on the street. Not once did the prophet take to his newspaper and slander who did it. He know who did it. Not once did he do that. Not once did he, debate anyone, who had injured or harmed him. You know what he did? He outworked them.
Islam.
That's Drew Ali's example. He worked and was consistent in a way where he had to have been inspired by the great God of the universe. Even in this day, I always laugh when Moors demonstrate excuses. It's funny to me. I don't laugh in their face. This is an internal thing. The chairman knows what I'm talking about. It's an internal thing because it's like the prophet is reported to have said, I came to take away all the excuses. And why? Every seemingly unsurmountable thing that he was faced with, he surmounted. Every obstacle, every enemy, every foe, everything, he did it all. He did his job. And everything he did was according to science. And deeds, right? Prophet Noble Drew Ali, prophet, thought word indeed, yeah. In deeds. Prophet Noble Drew Ali did not live according to the noise of tongues. He is reported to have said, if I tell you I'm going to do a thing, that means it is already done. He didn't run around talking about nothing in the noble one, nothing in the angel, nothing in the prophet demonstrated him run around talking about to everybody what he was about to do. If that Moor said he was going to do something within 48 hours, the whole demonstration is right there. Islam, So not only being our prophet, our angel, and our founder, y'all know the prophet is our father too, right? The prophet created a society to a nation of, a nation of orphans that didn't have a nation or had one but had, been taken away from it, right? So in his thought, his example, in his word, also his example, and in his deed, also an example. We had everything it takes to save a nation. Now we have to take those things, right, and save ourselves. So that's what it means to imitate the prophet. Now, here's another part to that. The new Moors that come in the temple and the Asiatics that we come across in Asia, they'll never meet the prophet Noble Drew Ali physically. He gave up his form in 1929. Right? How will they meet the prophet? By you imitating the prophet. That's how they meet him, right? But albeit through your personality, right? But they'll see us, as the record so eloquently says, something else is added unto thee. Islam? And that is what they'll be attracted to. That still is not you. Or should I say it is you, but it's the spirit man part of you. It's the art that they're drawn to, right? So do your best to be as sincere as you can be and demonstrate what the prophet asked us to do the best you can do. And don't worry about nobody else. This is how we imitate the prophet. I yield the floor to the next question.
Islam. Praise Allah. Now we are getting we're actually over our time, but y'all know time never was. We're gonna keep going.
Praise God.
No, it's all good. Last week the meeting went almost a whole hour past the time. You know how it is. So it's all is well.
I also would like to add, we want to make sure that the prophet, the prophets reported to have said, "Don't burden us more too." So you're the chairman, brother. So I'm here at your behest. So you let me know.
Praise Allah. You good, Mo. I think this has been a wonderful class. It is Moorish American Week. What better way for us to come together and fellowship? We have Moorish presidents from all across the country, from all different time zones right here, right now. And wonderful, very fruitful dialogue. So I'm fine. I would hope that, I don't know what else y'all got planned, but to me, ain't nothing better to listen to than this. I ain't got nothing else that I think is more important. But no disrespect, if you have previous obligations, we understand. But we're gonna keep going, So we're gonna keep this floor open for questions. If you have them, we're gonna keep these gates open long enough to get them answered, because we don't always get access to our beloved brother. We don't always get to see all these different Moors from different groups, different temples all together. So let's seize the moment. Let's continue to learn and grow together. And let's demonstrate one prophet, one temple, Islam. So our brother Akil, you have the floor, sir.
Islam. First I rise, giving all praise to Allah, to that infinite wisdom. We know as art. We Moorish Americans know as art. Then I give the highest of honor to his noble and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And then I furthermore I extend honor to all honors where they may be due. Specific to chapter 40, it's been a beautiful journey this evening, Sheik. I see here but I do want a little bit of clarity, if you will. On instruction 10, it says, as the man who engageth his wife to remain in widowhood. What is meant by engaging, basically to remain in widowhood? What specific? I have an idea, but what is meant specifically in that verbiage?
Islam, praising Allah and the highest of honor to his illustrious prophet Heru Ali. Quite simply put, this is the man who would dare ask his wife that after I pass form, don't marry anyone else. Stay in widowhood. I couldn't conceive of you being with anyone else. You ain't gonna be concerned with that, not on this plane anyway. So the prophet is addressing the foolish approach to something like that. And again, I know a lot of the wisdom of the prophet can tend to be extremely lofty, but we have to remember that Islam is a simple faith. So sometimes certain statements are just what they are. So that's merely what it's alluding to. The fact that someone that is so vain that they would ask, their wife to remain a widow, and not get married after they pass form. That's quite simple. That's all it is. I yield the floor.
Islam. We're gonna go to our sisters Diamond and Ashley, but before that, I want to just briefly address the question in the group chat. Somebody put a question in there asking how many temples are in the grand body. My portion of understanding would be there's only one, being again one prophet, one temple. Across America, there's temples in just about every major city. You can find a group of Moors propagating the faith who have organized and have a group there doing the work. But I would argue that there's only one temple. There are many groups all around the country, and all these groups can all collectively make up the grand body. And I think that it's imperative for us to promote and teach that message, because so often, and I'm gonna use a quick example before I go to these sisters for their questions, but how many Walmarts are there, right? There's only one Walmart. There's a lot of different locations where they may have a Walmart based, but there's only one. And that's how we got the Moorish Science of America. We are all one. The geographic locations don't make us different. we all have the same constitution, the same laws, the same principles, the same values. And the time has come for us to demonstrate that unity. So that would be my answer to that question. And if anybody is struggling around the concept of unity and how it works from a functional perspective, I would direct you to chapter 26. And that gives us clear guidance on how to demonstrate that unity. So that's my answer to that question. And depending on where you are, if you're looking for a temple, we can help you find that group. Just let us know. But Islam, hopefully I answered that question. I'm going to go to our sister Diamond, who had a question. Her name is Finesse Queen up here, but I know our sister Diamond Slay L. Islam, you have the floor, sister.
I wanted to first I rise giving perfect praise to Allah. First, I gotta do that. Give honors, highest honors to our prophet, honors to our honors already given. So in instruction 14, why bestowest thou in every man the flattery of unmeaning words? When I got there, I stopped and I was like, he could have said false words. What was the meaning of unmeaning words? What actually gives a word meaning? Islam.
Again, praising Allah, giving honors to his prophet. So we have to remember. Let's go to the cover of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guiding Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen state of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. So, we hear divinely prepared, right? So we have to remember this is a religious pamphlet. This is our context for anything that's found within this text. So when we're dealing with unmeaning words, right? We're dealing with something that's, being presented that is not of a divine origin. See, let's say the national, because it's a Moorish divine national movement. A lot of Moors, gravitate solely towards the national, right? But the national is birthed by way of the divine, So, if we're demonstrating any of the chapter 45, any of the ancient cultures mentioned by our forefathers, mentioned by the prophet relative to our forefathers, all of them were theocracies. There were no secular societies. From ancient Egypt to whatever, all of them were of a divine nature, dealt with a divinity. So when words were created to reflect a divine nature, or like we say in our Quran, the highest plane of spirit life. Wisdom, right, speaks from the highest plane of spirit life. Okay, so we must remember that. So what is flattery? Flattery is the exact opposite of that. Just to throw another source in because it deals with the same topic. There's a book called The Prince, written by Niccolo Machiavelli. In The Prince, Machiavelli, because this was a book to groom rulers. In there, he warns them about the flatterer. It's the same. It's the Roman version of this lesson. Okay, but we have to remember, relative to chapter 17, the Greeks and Romans had degrees. This is not Quran. Remember, Jesus went to Greece and Rome. So there were degrees left there, right? But the prophet, he squares this up and cleans it up, for our purpose as Moorish Americans. So to answer in short, the aspect of unmeaning words would be, words that are not divine in origin and do not serve a divine purpose. I yield the floor.
Islam. Wow. That was a great answer.
Praise Allah.
The usage baubles of the day would be another example of the unmeaning words. So Islam. Praise Allah. So we're gonna go to our sister Ashley.
I rise and give perfect praise to the great Father God Allah and his prophet Noble Drew Ali. Listen, family, I really hate asking questions because I don't know if people really truly understand me, but I'm going to chapter 40 and chapter 41. We talked about instability and inconstancy. And the first thing I want to say is, what led me to the Moorish Science Temple of America was astrology. I've dived deep into it, and then I met the prophet. So when I met the prophet, he talked about this grand body, and within that grand body, it was the 12 zodiacs. And what I've come to recognize is inconstancy and instability, I believe, coexist with that inconstancy and instability. And my question is, one second, baby. My question is, because the prophet he planned it out. He said the Aries is the head, and the Taurus is the throat, and all of these things. And my question is, do you feel that inconstancy and instability comes from people not knowing their role, people not knowing their position in this grand body, in this grand grand scheme of things? Because I'm a Virgo, so I can digest a lot. I may not be as talkative, but I could stomach most of what chapter 9 has pretty much taught us. I be around the killers and the drug dealers, but that does not mean I'm there involved with it, but I can withstand it because I can understand it. And my portion is it inconstancy and instability because people don't know their role? And I yield the floor.
Praise Allah. Beautifully framed question. You hit a lot in there. Yes, it is because people don't know their role. Now, what is their role? Okay. So here we are. We're in physical bodies. So I'm in chapter 1 right now. So we're in physical bodies. Our physical body, contains a soul. Within that soul is a spirit. Okay. The highest aspect of who you are is spirit. Now, you hit something. You talked about a grand body, right? I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Those who might not have studied astrology might not, know that. But just as a, something that Moors may not know, in the Moorish God newspaper in 1928, there was an article entitled "A Masterpiece of Religious Literature," and there it talked about how, that coming out soon would be, a newer edition, the latest edition of the Koran, right? He was talking about, this Koran, right? He said, in part, in it would be the reading of the stars. Okay? So in our Holy Koran and the Moorish Science Temple of America, it deals with astrology. Okay? You got to know what you're looking at. Remember, things are taught in degrees. Okay? We don't come out the gate like that because we're more concerned with your character first. we got the astrology conversation later, right? But, I was always talking to the person asked the question, they're ready for the answer. So as an example of those 12 houses that you're talking about, we're going to get to inconstancy and instability. If we would go to chapter 23, right, and the holy instructions for our children, right, from verses 8 to 13, right, if you start at Aries and go in the exact order of the 12 houses, you have all 12 houses of the zodiac and what to teach them. As an example, the first one, verse 8, teach him obedience and he shall bless thee. That's talking about Aries. Islam, and it goes on. I don't want to, burden the floor with that, right? Now, this grand body you were talking about, now that's something from astrology. It's something known as the celestial grand man, right? The celestial grand man is the macrocosm, right, of what you have, as, the constellations, so on and so forth. So, if you put all of the constellations and everything together, it will form a body, in other words, just like you look at, let's say, Aquarius as the man pouring out the water, right? If you look at the stars, it can kind of form that. Well, if you put all the constellations together, all the different houses together, it'll form what is known as, if you write that down and just Google it, the celestial grand man. It gives you that entire study. Now, relative to inconstancy and instability, these are things. Remember, the prophet was a prophet of Allah, so he's kind of, because when you're dealing with astrology, the problem with astrology is that what we base astrology on, right, which is the stars and the constellation. That's still all we refer to in Islamism as the manifest, right? What the prophet was talking about was planes higher than the manifest, okay? Planes that existed before the manifest came about, okay? So, and then what you see as the planets and the constellations, so they're just manifest variations of certain, of what you call the seven, the manifest of the seven Elohim, okay? So there's those seven being protoplas, earth, plant, beast, man, angel, and cherubim that are found in chapter 11, right? So a manifest variation of protoplas would be mitochondrial DNA, ribosomes, nuclei, so on and so that's that. A manifest variation of earth would be trees, grass, so on. All these come unfolding. I hope y'all follow what I'm saying. All right. So in these, in the grand scheme of things, in our true station, of things, as we slowed down in vibration and eventually took on a physical body. There was a nature that came forth, right, from fleshly things. So when we took a body, in order for us to dwell in this plane, a lower self had to have presented itself in order for us to survive, right? I like to make things really simple. Brothers have come across this when you ever had to change a tire. Brothers always know that, that 5 lugs on a tire, 4 of them generally come off easily. But that last one, that mold ain't trying to come off, right? And you can try to intellectually get it off, just, without grunting and groaning and moaning. But to get that joint up, sometimes you gotta summon something lower into the higher to pull it off, right? You got to make the higher and the lower self one in order to accomplish the task in the manifest, right? Now, if we're not astute enough to know how to access the Allah in man, which is the higher self, then the lower nature abounds and takes over, right? It begins to govern the vehicle, right? So this is, the 5 folds, the sub-folds, all these things come about when we're not in tune with the Allah that is in man. Can the higher self pass away? No. Why? Because it is Allah in man, right? So if we access the higher nature, right, we can keep in check those lower ethers, and then we become, the spirit becomes like it's supposed to be, the master of the house, more honorable than its walls, like the Quran talks. So I pray Allah that answers your question. I yield the floor.
Praise Allah. Islam, Moors, that's a wonderful answer. And when we get to chapter 23 in the Koran Study Class, we will definitely elaborate on that. Bring your natal charts to that class. That'd be a very, very good way to give you a Moorish interpretation. And before I go to the next question, I want to deal with one other question that was in the group chat. One of the Moors asked, where did the prophet say that at? I mean, I think our Sheik demonstrated very, very well. I was going to reference chapter 23 as well. I would also reference in the 101s a couple of the questions he asked, where is you Allah? Who is Allah? Allah is the father of the universe. When dealing with the universe, we're dealing with the planets. We're dealing with the position of the planets. So it all ties directly with astrology and zodiac from a practical sense. That's the key, is making it practical and be able to apply it to your everyday life. So again, when we get to the chapters, we'll elaborate more. Yes.
I have something, for our sister who's interested in this astrological aspect. If you go to chapter 11, verse 42, where it says, the Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom deified. He brings to us the knowledge of the secret things of Allah, and all the world will hear his word and glorify his name, right? That the Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom. Astrologically, well, what is a rising? The rising is the ascendant. It's where, when the day you were born, take a snapshot of where everything was at. On the eastern horizon, whatever astrological house was on the eastern horizon, that is your rising or your ascendant. That is how you channel your intellect or how the world sees you, right? As an example, so I'm a Libra sun sign, but my rising is Aquarius, right? So I'm drawn to knowledge, that type of stuff. So that's how people see me, like in that perspective, right? Obviously, there's more aspects within the chart, right? But here we have in our Quran talking about how Jesus was the rising star, deified. He was that manifest, right? And it said from him came the secret things of Allah. Islam. So that's astrology, Moses. That's the reading of the stars, right? But you have to be careful not to arm people the wrong way. You know, this is why adept chamber exists. You know, yeah, like we don't just start pouring that stuff out because you arm people the wrong way, and now they run around charging $1,500 to do a reading for your chart. You know, you know, it gets out of control. So let's just come in, let's get our families in order, let's pay our dues, and attend our meetings, and core stuff, foundational stuff. I yield the floor.
Mo, did you say your rising is Aquarius?
Yes, sir.
Praise Allah. Okay. My rising is Aquarius as well. So
that's why we get along, brother.
Islamism, Mo. Makes sense, Mo. Put it up now.
Praise Allah.
Praise Allah. So, Sister Diamond, you have your hand raised. You have the floor, sister.
That's crazy because I'm a Libra and I'm a Aquarius moon. That's what I can understand. So,
boy, sister, you don't get no rest.
do you hear me? Do you hear me? Everything just be going. Okay, look. Verse 1, instruction 1. And constancy is powerful in the heart of man, and temperance swayeth it whither it will. I wanted to come back and because in these last couple of weeks I kept having this wording that was saying, okay, so earlier you were saying how the mind is disconnected from the heart, the soul is disconnected from the spirit, and I was having the revelation, which I had previously had, that chapter 21 is in reference to that, and from this demonstration I just found the connection between it. So intemperance, it whither it will. In instruction, I just had it. Give me Say she's fed. Okay, 7. She is clothed with neatness. She is fed with temperance. That was the reference that the soul has to come into a certain type of posture and come back into unison in marriage with the spirit, because the spirit is the ruler over the soul plane. And we don't get those divine downloads when we just rely on what we've just learned, like when we just memorize words, or we just we refer to our intellect. Like we have to refer to spirit, because spirit has a type of knowledge that we don't just get, and it comes in this way because it has an authority also, which is Allah, right? And so Allah being the authority, if you just lean into it, it give you divine instructions. So everybody ain't gonna understand your instructions when you hop into your spirit man, because it start ruling, and the things that it rules over can't be seen by carnal eyes. Islam.
Islam. If I may, so you're exactly right, but we're also given instructions, which we covered earlier, about how the our eyes, which are which can be raised up to be ministers that work for us, right? And another chapter in the Quran, it talk about seeing things from the eyes of soul. You understand what I'm saying? Let's not forget that the icon or the emblem representing Allah that the Prophet gave us is an eye, right? And then we take that and go, and in the chapter of religion talks about it's an eye that does not wink at our wrongdoings. So it's something that's ever aware, right? So this is what you're talking about communicating from your spirit man. You're communicating from a phase of existence, that is ever present. Like it says in the What is Islam article, Allah is not an inert force. It is not inactive, or it is not passive. And once you align yourself with the created, the creative fate, wisdom, will, and love, you will be able to, or empowered to, or in line with the force of speaking things that carnal men can't conceive of. But people who know what that is and live their life accordingly, they know what that is. These are, 9 times out of 10, the ones that you'll be able to form a friendship with, right? And this is not cliques and segregation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about vibration here, which is one of the 7 Hermetic laws, right? So, but this is what the atmosphere of the Moorish Science Temple of America was, designed for, because you don't want to turn that stuff on and just be running around in Asia without being able to be around like minds. I've seen people, especially that people that were adept sheiks and ministers, that took certain vows that they were going to do a particular thing and violated that, and then they lost their minds. I've seen this. It's not a game. None of these ethers are living energies. And when you align yourselves with them, you have to live a certain way, in order for it to not harm you. And I'm not dealing in fear. These are just hardcore reality. This is not stuff you play with. I yield the floor.
Islam. Praise Allah. So we're going to go to in the group chat. We see someone asked if these calls are meeting. If these are weekly. Yes, they are. Every week, every Wednesday. We're here, National Koran Study Class. We go over the next chapter every single week. So we're gonna go to our brother Paris Hardy or Paris H. Bay, and then we're gonna go back to our Grand Sheik demonstrator today for I guess his final remarks before we ready to lower this meeting. I want to be here all night, Morris. We'll be here till 1 o'clock again.
Praise Allah.
Islam. Brother Paris, you have the floor, sir.
Islam, praise Allah, honor to his prophet, honor to everything that was given honor to Islam. I have a question since y'all was speaking on the soul, instruction 2 in the soul of man, because I was sitting here thinking, right? Prophet said if he could get his more to think, we could save ourselves. So I was just coming up with answers myself, but I wanted to make sure, thinking being one of the actions of the soul, instruction 2, it says that thou hast the soul is of all knowledge. And it went along to say something about most certain of all truths. If we tap into our soul, what does that really mean? Does that mean that we know the answer? Like we know the truth? Like we know how to uplift ourselves, etc.?
Islam. So basically, when you get into that more, we have to remember that the soul fell too, right? The spirit fell down into the plane of soul, and the spirit was clothed with soul that it might function on the plane of soul, and then soul came down to the manifest and took on the body, so that we might function on the plane of things made manifest. That being the case, you gotta remember more is like man. I'm talking about humanity, man and woman. We're forgetful creatures. And I don't mean like, mind forgets. I don't mean in that sense. I mean like it's easy because of the distractions in this plane of existence to forget your purpose, right? So you can't just defer to your soul as though it has all the answers, because in this plane, you have to teach your soul. Islam, you have to teach your spirit to be attentive to its good. Why? Because when the spirit came to the plane of soul and was wrapped with a with a soul, it became slightly out of tune with its native plane. If we were to go to chapter 1 really quick, okay. So on page 5, it reads, "And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages." Right? Many ages until the lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slow and still, and then the essences took on a final guard. The perfumes and odors and the true sensations and the all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Now here we go. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah. Let's not forget that's the goal. The goal is to become the strength of Allah made manifest, Morris. See, that's what we say, the man is the Lord of the plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest. Oh, that's a lofty station. Islam. So much so that on the opposite side of the page, on page 4, it mentions all the different creation of hear ye, or all the different elements, all the whatever. But what that was, it was the announcing of the creation of man. So all the creation had to stand still and hear that man was coming to be the Lord of these two planes, right? And, and then it just goes on. So I would suggest that the questioner go in and reread chapter 1. You could call the chapter, it's like our philosophy of life, equivalent to the Holy Quran of Mecca, Surat al-Fatiha, the first surah, is the philosophy of the Holy Quran of Mecca, also known as the Great Quran of Muhammad, right? So just remember, unless you have taught your soul, don't just defer to your soul. If you have a thought, confirm it, right? Go to the record, because your soul might be feeding you something that's false. Islam, because it learned that through that thinking, understanding, reasoning, willing process, it's picked up a lot of false information, right? And that data plays itself out through our actions, right? So we must teach our soul, and then it says what? Teach our spirit to be attentive to its good, attentive, presence, awareness, the now, right? And make sure, because you are who you are when nobody's around. Not when people are looking, back to vanity. Not when people are looking. Who are you when you're home by yourself? Do you pick your Quran up? Do you reflect on your problem? Are you a meditator? Do you pray? Islam Morris? Do you really bless your food before you eat it, or you just go in like a savage and just... Are you a Muslim when nobody's around? Islam, so that's that teaching that spirit to be attentive to is good. So you must educate your soul. I yield the floor.
Ooh, Islam. We ask that all any other questions be held, and we just reflect on the wisdom we received tonight. Very, very powerful meeting. We give honors to our beloved brother, man, and friend, our Grand Governor Heru Ranesi-El, Temple 19, Atlanta, Georgia, for living a life accordingly. We give honors to everybody who's present, and we hope that tonight's class was informative. You were able to take away something to assist you in celebrating and enjoying Moorish American Week. Prophet gave us something to shout about Moors. Be happy, be grateful, be proud, and love one another, and be loved as the Prophet is loved. So we're going to lower the meeting now. So first, we're going to yield to our Lieutenant Governor and our Treasurer, our Sister D. Shipman Bay, for her to demonstrate Act 3. And then I'll do the readings, and we'll lower the meeting. Islam. You there, Sister D. Shipman Bay? Islam, sister. If you are talking, you muted. But Sister D. Shipman Bay, you are available to demonstrate Act 3?
Islam, it is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Islam, if you have heard anything worth sharing, anything that would lead to the cause of uplifting our own people, we need finance, and we need it badly. Islam, to quote our prophet, the Temple Cash App for Temple 14 has been dropped in the chat for any donations towards the uplifting of fallen humanity. Islam, per Act 7, we are to contribute. Islam, we are to keep in line with all necessities. Islam, with that being said, I yield, Brother Chairman.
Islam. Islam Moors, I'm going to read the proclamations to be proclaimed in every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors amongst you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens. They are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me, so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid the divine respects to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world would not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the last few years. Islam. The other proclamation. Hold on. Read that one. Pardon me, I'm working from another version of the Moorish literature, so it's not the one I'm accustomed to, but Islam. Islam, a warning from the prophet to be proclaimed in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speeches while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cars with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There's been much confusion caused by members trying out their cars. The cars are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive the reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. And if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card-in button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. But this is a holy and divine movement, founded by the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Drew Ali. Islam, Islam, Islam. Last thing I would say, business-wise, Koran Study Class, we're here today. We'll be back next Wednesday. Please visit your local temples. This is Moorish American Week, so please be happy, celebrate. I know there's holiday meetings in every state, so however you found out about this meeting, please get back to that individual and attend those holiday meetings as well. If you are looking for a temple to attend, you can always contact me, and I will guide you and direct you to the nearest temple that I know of. And the last thing I would say is, can we get Raphael to lead one of these? I'll put you on the spot, Sheik. We'd love for you to lead one of these in the near future as well. Mo got a lot of wisdom as well. I'm just going to put it out there. And I'm calling all Sheiks. If you are interested in facilitating and leading one of these Koran study classes, please let me know. We got 52 of them planned this year. So pick one. You can get one. All right. And with that, let me close out the Koran. And our sister treasurer, did we have a counter or anything tonight that you need to announce?
Islam, we've collected $15 this evening.
Praise Allah. Honest to his prophet. Thank you all for your contributions. Remember, your presence is the greatest gift that we value. So thank you for that. That's the true wealth, because you are the wealth. So Islam, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nations of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Know yourself and your Father God Allah, that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man need to worship under his own vine and fig tree, the uniting of Asia, Islam. Man, we
Islam. Sheik, we lost you.
Islam Morris, did his phone die?
I think his computer may have. He did have a backup, but I don't hear the brother.
Islam, Sister Shipman Bay.
Islam, I hear.
Islam,
I hear him.
Islam,
We
I
hear
hear
him.
him.
Is there
I can hear him.
You can hear him?
Yes.
You all can hear him?
Islam.
He just
Okay, I
asked
get
if someone could please close out.
Islam.
Islam.
Sister Shipman Bay, is there another Grand Sheik from your body online that you would like to close out? If not, I can.
Islam, Sheik, you may.
Praise Allah. All right, Moors, at this time, we'll close all meetings as we began with the Moorish American prayer. I'd like to ask everybody, please rise. Please hold your feet at a 45-degree angle. Raise 5 on the left, 2 on the right, invoking the sacred presence of the 7 Elohim that created everything that ever was, is, and evermore to be. You can follow behind me in silent benediction as I recite the Moorish American prayer. Islam, Islam, Islam. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Islam Morris. I love you, Morris.
Islam family, was a great meeting.
Islam.
It was my honor. I had a great time, Morris. I pray Allah you all